Remember to hit that subscribe button. Welcome back to another edition of Against the Grain Sports. It's me, Gerard McCain. I'm here with Jason Coleman, and I'm also here with Jody Coleman. Today, we got a few topics to talk about. We got to talk about Chris Bosh, nominated to the Hall of Fame, what our thoughts is on that. We also got trade rumors to talk about, and Against the Grain Sports is going to give out our mid-season awards. So without further ado, let's get it started. Jody Coleman, how do you feel about Chris Bosh being nominated in the Hall of Fame? Has he accomplished enough to be in the Hall of Fame?
Well, first off, Gerard, man, I want to go ahead and tell him congratulations, Chris Bosh. He was a solid player across his career. He gave you 19 and 2 per game. He gave you 8.5 rebounds per game, and he had 2 championships. He also was 11-time All-Star, and one year he made the first team All-NBA. So, I mean, with 2 championships, why wouldn't he be considered as a Hall of Famer?
Because he didn't get this is my thought process on that. Like, I don't feel like Chris Bosh is a championship player without joining LeBron James and Dwayne Wade in Miami. We know Chris Bosh, he was a beast in Toronto. You know, he had he had 6 seasons in his whole career of averaging 20 plus points a game. He had 3 seasons where he averaged double-doubles. So by him going to Miami and joining LeBron and Dwayne Wade, his production dropped off, and he wasn't even that important. I'm not going to say that important, but he wasn't the major piece to help them get that championship.
Hold up, Gerard, can I jump in? Do you not remember when they played the San Antonio Spurs? He was the one that acquired the rebound, and he made the assist to Ray Allen. You do understand that's what he did, right?
Yeah, and that's the only thing that you can remember about Chris Bosh, right?
But you saying that was a Hall of Fame moment. Without him getting that rebound, they don't beat the San Antonio Spurs. Matter of fact, they had started bringing the championship trophy out. That's how much that they thought San Antonio was going to win that game. And Chris Bosh got the rebound and the assist on the last play. If that was LeBron James, we'd be talking about that until we gray in the beard and gray in the head.
I'm already gray in the beard and gray in the head, and I'm still not talking about it.
But let me go before we go to Jason real quick. Let me give you some other players that's in the Hall of Fame, and they don't have as much of accolades of Chris Bosh. So we got one player. I'm going to give you his stats, and then I'm going to give you the name after I give you stats. Jason, you can join in on this as well. He averaged 17.8 points per game, 10 rebounds over the course of his career. He was a 15-time All-Star, a 9-time NBA All-Star, first team, Defensive Player of the Year. He was an MVP one season, and he has 1 championship. Who is he?
So he got 1 championship? Is it Moses Malone?
No, his name is Kevin Garnett.
Kevin Garnett.
But he's a Hall of Famer. He averaged less points than Chris Bosh and has less championships. I got another one for you. He averaged 21 points per game, 9.8 rebounds per game over the course of his career. He's 11-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA player, and he has 0 championships. Who is he?
That's got to be like Allen Iverson or something. Not Allen Iverson. He scored too many points. Are these big men we talking about?
Big men. These are big men. These are big men.
Shoot, that's a good one too.
Dominique
Divac?
Who?
Dominique?
No.
I said Vlade Divac, but I'm stumped there myself.
Patrick Ewing.
Not Patrick.
My guy, Patrick Ewing.
And I got one more for you guys before we go on to Jason. He averaged 22.1 points per game, 11.7 rebounds per game. He was 11-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA player. He has 1 MVP, and he has 0 championships. Who is he?
Wes Unseld?
No. Gerard.
I'm trying to think, man. I don't know.
His name is Charles Barkley.
Charles Barkley.
Now, with that being said, how is his numbers anything not comparable to Chris Bosh? Chris Bosh has more championships than all three of those players combined.
Well, when you look at it from the standpoint, like Chris Bosh, when he was the fulcrum, he would probably be on that same trajectory if he didn't join up. He didn't join up with LeBron and Wade. I do feel he's an NBA All-Star. NBA Hall of Famer. Just from the simple fact that he has had the 11 All-Star appearances. He has the 2 championships. He has an All-NBA team. He was an underrated defender. He was kind of like the fulcrum of their defense, the Heat's defense, because he was able his ability to switch out on smaller players allowed LeBron actually to roam a lot more. And when LeBron had his best defensive year, is because Chris Bosh was behind him, making sure that he can clean up any mess behind him. Like I said, I feel like he should be in the Hall of Fame. I feel like he deserves the accolades that he receives. Like I said, he's not going to be an all-time player, but he still goes like everybody gets to the Basketball Hall of Fame. So I feel Bosh deserves that nomination. He deserves to get in. Also on that list, I also want to say it's time to let Chris Webber in there as well, because I feel like Chris Webber was long overdue to be in the Hall of Fame. I think a lot of times Chris Webber gets swept up as being like the third best power forward during his era, but Chris Webber, he should have been in the finals in 2002. Who knows if he probably would have made the finals in 2003 had he not blew out his knee. So it's like the two major years that the chance that he had to kind of set his resume. He lost. Okay, 2002 kind of was we got Donahue, we got so many other things that went on in that series with the Lakers. But 2003, I think they were probably the best team in the league. And when he blew out his knee in that playoff series, it kind of started his distinction down. I would say down the ranks as being a Hall of Fame player.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. This is my thing about this. Okay, those guys that you named were the main focus points of their teams. Chris Bosh was not. Chris Bosh was really a role player. And with that being said, like Chris Webber don't even deserve to be in a Hall of Fame. Like, I don't think everybody should get into the Hall of Fame.
But it's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Just listen to me. I understand what you said about Patrick Ewing and Charles Barkley, but both of those guys were the focal points of their teams when they played basketball. Chris Bosh was not. Well, he was when he was in Toronto, but when he got those 2 championships, he wasn't. He was a role player.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I would say I think it's okay for him to be a role player. It wasn't like he was like
in the Hall of Fame. Come on, man, that's not a Hall of Fame player.
You look at it now. Draymond Green's gonna make the Hall of Fame, and Draymond Green's the ultimate role player.
He shouldn't though.
But Draymond Green's gonna be what? He's 2 defensive players a year so far.
Yep.
He's 2 times.
He had 3 championships. He had 3 championships.
He should have had 4. He damn near outplayed LeBron James in that game 7, if everybody remembers. But I think sometimes you have to realize that basketball, even though you have your superstars, some role players are superstar role players. I think that's a thing that's a misconception that if you're a role player, you're just a role player. There are superstar role players that make teams championship teams. That's why that's the importance of them being on that team. That's why I go with guys like Draymond Green.
But then my thing is why is he being inducted before LeBron and Dwayne Wade?
Well, first of all, he retired before those guys, so he has to go in according to the amount of time. But I'm a piggyback.
Well, they should wait till they retired and then let him in.
You can't do that. That's not how it goes. The rules is 5 years after your retirement. Now, to say Chris Bosh is a role player is really stretching it. This guy, when he went to Toronto, he was the 3rd option, but that didn't make him a role player. He was a 3rd option. He still put up 18 to 20 points per game. That's more than some people. When the San Antonio Spurs won a championship, the last one they won, they didn't have anybody on the team that averaged more than 20 points a game.
That was just good coaching.
Okay, so why is it not good coaching when it comes to Chris Bosh?
Because they had LeBron James and Dwayne Wade.
Okay, and Chris Bosh held his own. He was the 3rd option. And then, so excuse me. Then you go in here and you say that all those guys that I named was the focal point. When Kevin Garnett went to Boston, Paul Pierce was the leading scorer on that team.
That's because Paul Pierce is a gunner. If you remember those playoffs, man, listen to me. if you remember those playoff series, man, Kevin Garnett had to cuss and fight for them to give him the ball. Until they start giving him the ball, they wasn't doing that good.
They won the championship soon as he got to Boston. What are you talking about? His first season.
The role of Kevin Garnett, I think Kevin Garnett.
No, what I'm saying is in those playoff series. Do you remember in those playoff series, they wasn't performing that good until Kevin Garnett cussed them out about them not giving him the ball.
Go ahead, Jason.
I would say with Kevin Garnett, I think another thing with Boston, that Boston team, Kevin Garnett, Tom Thibodeau unlocked Kevin Garnett on the defensive end. Kevin Garnett was arguably one of the best defensive players in the history of basketball. Mm-hmm. But I think what Tom Thibodeau did, they made it they stated the importance of how important Kevin Garnett was to the team's defense. And I think that's why Pierce was taking all the shots and he was gunning. And I think Ray Allen took a lot more shots than both of them.
Right. Matter of fact, I think in one season, Kevin Garnett was the third option offensively. So he was the same option as Chris Bosh. Kevin Garnett don't even average more points than Chris Bosh over his course of his career.
Well, sometimes with those points, you have to look at the last year Kevin Garnett played. I think he only averaged 4 points a game, 4 or 5 points a game. So I think Bosh went out. Bosh was an all-star before he had to retire. He was forced to retire. So unfortunately, he had to retire after they found the blood clots. But I feel like when I look at some points of the game, like even Pat Ewing was he finished with the Magic and he was averaging 4 or 5 points a game. So it's like sometimes I look at the points per game average. It's like that's not a big determining factor for me because I'm like these guys are at the tail end of their career. They're trying to collect checks. I mean, like Pastor Ewing said, we make a lot of money, we spend a lot of money, we make a lot of money. So he was out there trying to collect checks, and he had a couple kids. So I always look at the numbers from the numbers aspect. I'm like, points per game is not really a big determining factor for the Hall of Fame. It shouldn't be.
Well, let me go to you real quick, Jason. You have mentioned Chris Webber, and Chris Bosh getting into the Hall of Fame, and I agree with that. For Gerard to say that Chris Bosh wasn't the focal point on that Sacramento Kings team he was the best player on that Sacramento team. Sacramento Kings, he was the best player on that team. For
you talking about Chris Webber?
Seasons.
Chris Webber, yeah.
Chris Webber.
Except for that 1 year, I think Page was third or fourth in the MVP voting. I think it was 2003. When
he wasn't better than Chris Webber, though. We know that.
Yeah, we know that.
He wasn't. But Chris Webber he didn't win on that team though. As far as he didn't win a championship.
Patrick Ewing didn't win either. Charles Barkley didn't win either. Reggie Miller didn't win either. I mean, the list goes on. Karl Malone didn't win either. John Stockton. I can name all kind of Hall of Famers that did not win.
But they still legends though.
So why can't Chris Webber be?
Chris Webber, like I said, with the basketball,
because he's not a legend. Just like Chris Bosh ain't a legend.
But with the Basketball Hall of Fame, it's not just about your NBA career. Chris Webber, what he did, you have to also factor in what he did in college, and that's just the Basketball Hall of Fame. They take into account your college career, even a high school career. Like most people will tell you, Chris Webber was probably the best high school basketball player to ever come out during the time when he came out. Until LeBron James came out. So it's that's the thing. Like it's a holistic view of the basketball player from high school up into their NBA career. That's why I feel like Chris Webber should have been in the Hall of Fame. He was he got 2 Final Fours. He's the best player, like I said, the best high school player ever, one of the best high school players ever. And he had a solid NBA career. So I think Chris Webber, he's long overdue to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't know why he's not in the Hall of Fame to begin with. I mean, there's some guys that look back like how they get in before Chris Webber, but maybe this should be here.
I think one of the reasons why Chris Webber is probably not in is because of the things that went on when he was in college, the accusations with him taking booster money and all of those things. So I think those things keep, certain players from getting into the Hall of Fame too, because once you got those accusations, people just, they act silly, but that's just a part of the game, period.
Right.
Well, that's the age-old debate. I want to thank Chris Bosh for an outstanding career, and I want to congratulate him on getting to the Hall of Fame. Hopefully, we'll see Chris Webber in there one day.